Ahoy, fellow wedding crashers!
And welcome aboard The Joy of Trek, a fashion-forward podcast exploring the hungry jugglers and fire sculptors of Star Trek.
All of it. I'm Kaki.
I'm Kay.
And holding the sacred chalice of Rix is your chief engineer, Greg.
Together we're on a mission through the lush settings of Star Trek to find the lesson in every mud bath and the excellence in every episode.
Even the one-sided parental contracts.
Because every episode must be someone's favourite, and it might as well be ours.
So ditch your boring responsibilities and join us as we strip down to The Joy of Trek. Is that our first sort of perfect run-through?
I think it might be.
There's even a little error in the script, like there was two thes, but I very professionally read over them.
Oh, yes, I didn't even notice them because that's what you do.
Hey, Kay.
Yes?
This is canonically the first time that we've watched a second episode of one series so far. How did that feel for you?
Ooh, well, I mean, The Next Generation is probably the one that I've seen most of. I mean,
right, same here.
And again, I've never really re-watched much Next Generation. Even back in the day when it was airing on TV. I mean, there wasn't that much in the way of reruns.
No.
Never really returned. I mean, the odd episode, you know, the good ones, the Inner Light and stuff like those.
Yeah, you don't tape over those.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that you're more likely to come up. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't have any particular feelings on this matter.
To me, it sort of felt, you know, like slipping
home,
into a nice warm mud bath. Yes, exactly.
We are mudding on Solaris 4 of whatever. It was like some weird...
The Parallax Colony.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Because today we're going to be talking about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 20, Cost of Living, in which... Do you want to alternate sentences?
Sure.
Okay.
Lwaxana Troi comes to the Enterprise for her wedding, determined to marry a man chosen by a computer matchmaking system. Deanna is happy, but surprised that her mother won't follow Betazoid customs, leading to a disagreement. Meanwhile, Worf struggles with parenting his son, Alexander, who has trouble with responsibilities.
Lwaxana befriends Alexander, taking him to the holodeck and encouraging his free spirit. However, Alexander's mother, Deanna... Hey.
And where? Yeah, no.
Quick note. So...
yes, the synopsis is not quite right here.
The synopsis is quite right, and I'm going to call out me because we decided to do this episode yesterday,
yes.
And that was after a Halloween party. And so
during, I think, but yes.
I may, in fact, have consulted ChatGPT to do a little bit of my homework for me, a mistake that will not be repeated again.
Oh, yeah, so Alexander, so it would be... Deanna worried, Alexander's... Counselor, yes.
Deanna worries about the mixed messages. When the groom, Campio, accurate, arrives, he's not the perfect match Lwaxana expected. She escapes with Alexander to the holodeck.
At the wedding, Lwaxana follows Betazoid customs and arrives naked, which offends Campio, causing him to leave her at the altar. Lwaxana thanks Alexander for his help.
And afterwards, the family relaxes in the holodeck and mud baths, and Lwaxana admits her mistakes with Campio. Worf is left confused and annoyed. Okay, this episode is kind of special to me, and even though we'd originally said let's do one from every Star Trek series, and we still have Prodigy and Lower Decks to go, because unlike Paramount, we're not going to pretend that Star Trek Prodigy doesn't exist anymore.
Can it still be found, or is it one of those things that are disappearing for tax reasons?
It was very much a disappearing for tax reasons thing, and hopefully the second season will actually be finished, because it was like recorded and almost completed production when it was decided to be disappeared.
Yeah. Horrible practice, that.
People are hoarding the physical media.
Yeah.
And we're hoping for a continuation because it was an excellent series. When I first came up with this concept for this podcast and proposed it to you, I asked you, what's an episode that is lesser loved that you'd really like to re-examine?
And that question really left me kind of baffled because I really had to dig. And this episode... really was the first one to jump to mind to me. When you said, not any of the good episodes, not the first ones and not the renowned episode, but one of the ones that personally speak to you. And I don't understand, I can't tell you why, but this was the first one that just, popped into mind. I think it's because I like how, basically, Lwaxana does something here which she almost never does, and that's a little bit of introspectiveness and self-reflection, which is something that Lwaxana is not particularly well known for.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, so I'm trying to think whether you're right or whether I'm going to argue with you, because I think very much about these moments with Alexander, and also later with Odo when she comes to Deep Space Nine.
Right.
where she shares so much about like what her experience is like. And so that might actually be the minority of her appearances.
Yeah.
But it really sort of... No, I wouldn't even say that it changed how I appreciated Loxana's character. I've always kind of loved her.
Oh, yes. At a certain point, she's the one that you love to hate because she has a very overbearing personality. Let's put it like that.
See, there's a certain, I think, sexism to that terminology. You know, terminology like overbearing and domineering, like, is associated with women who exercise power and influence over the world of each other.
Right.
Like, I'm not being nasty at you or anything.
I don't really see the issue with that because, I mean, let's go to the opening season. It's like, sorry, not quite the opening shot because we'll get to it. But
do you want to dump the warp core first?
I say we eject the warp core!
There's not a lot of warp core dumping. Mostly that, I think it's Geordie's line.
According to the mass spectrometer, the elements in the residue have been broken down into simpler molecular structures.
Molecular structures. I knew that you were going
I'm just
I heard
excuse
that.
me? Yeah.
So you're writing it down because for those at home, Neil deGrasse Tyson has taught us that elements are the building blocks of the universe. They are atoms, and from atoms one can form molecules which consist of multiple atoms. So when you take an element,
you can't like break it down into individual molecules. I mean,
because
that's
those are
not how
not
it works.
components.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that was the primary one. I don't think there might be a few more, but I don't think there's like that.
So scientific inaccuracy.
No. Yes. Also, I mean, they were cutting it really fine with that asteroid. You know. At the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, what just happens? Like, they're just kind of zooming by and go like, oh, hey, look at this asteroid here. It just happens to impact the planet in about 40 seconds.
You're right, because the cold open is indeed like asteroid is in range and Picard says fire and pew and it's gone. And just like in 30 seconds and the planet is saved.
Yes.
Phew. Good
Completely
job.
not mentioned. No hello or thank you from anybody on the planet who might have asked them to come and help
They're
them
not
out
in
with
communication, I noticed.
No, it's just like something that they're like completely randomly, which of course is the MacGuffin for getting the alien entity of the week on board.
And that's my warp core.
You're right.
Why did we need this fucking B-plot?
I mean, I guess most of the time you don't need a B-plot at all, I guess.
Like, this is...
It's because they need a B-plot. I mean, that's about the only thing that I can think of why you want a B-plot. Is because the concept of the show is to have an A-plot and a B-plot, and sometimes even a C-plot.
Well, in this case, we have that. We have Loxana and her marriage, and we have Alexander and his problems with Worf and Deanna.
Yeah,
and then we have this Peter Allan Fields, the writer of this episode. Oh, yes, by the way, this first aired April 20th, 1992. Oh, good grief, I was 11. Written by Peter Allan Fields and directed by, Winrich Kolbe.
I don't know. What do we know that name from?
Well, I know it from a lot of really excellent episodes of Star Trek, including like Voyager. He did Caretaker.
Okay.
I think he and Kate Mulgrew, Catherine Janeway, were an item for a while. Peter Allan Fields, the writer, was bothered by the insertion of the Nitrium Parasite B story, considering it to be, quote, something one needed to have there rather than something that was an intrinsic part of the show. However, he was pleased when it was agreed to let the personal story take precedence. He noted, we don't want to do them all like that. This is a science fiction show and science is fun. But in this case, it was the personal story that was more important.
Right.
I deeply agree with that. I mean, I can understand that it would be very disappointing for the nerds, of which I was one, to tune in and then find, like, nothing for them to enjoy, no techno babble or whatever.
No spacey wacy stuff, but just purely a character-driven episode.
And I was certainly one of those, but as I've gotten older and, like, appreciated, like, excellent acting and emotive character development a lot more, it's so transparent that peril is all manufactured on this show.
Oh,
they aren't going to die. The ship isn't going to fall to pieces. And so I find it harder and harder to be excited by that or gripped by it.
Yes.
It just doesn't fucking matter.
We know
there's
that
another show next week.
Yep,
I know that.
We know that, yeah, so it's already in the guide, and we know the fact that even here at the end of the episode, it's like, oh, yes, like the ship is literally falling apart. You know, they had to like redirect warp power to the life support system because redirecting more power, here we go, sorry, a little bit more warp core breach here, which we're also about to come to, by the way.
Oh, yes.
Because if a system is failing because its elements have been transmuted into molecules and it's therefore turned into goo, routing more power to it is going to make it work better.
Well, hold on.
For life support. Also, the lithium chamber is down.
Shields up. Thank you. That's after they've arrived at their destination.
Yeah.
So, no, but during the travel, they prioritized speed over their survival.
Yeah.
Now that we've arrived, we don't need the warp engines anymore, so reroute that back to life support.
It might be that the problem was power, not the problem was broken life support.
Right.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
But also, like, everyone is unconscious. Here's my other warp core.
Yeah.
What was happening, like, to everybody else? Like, why is nobody else... the main thing is, like, Loxana and her husband, who is super uptight, and, like, Alexander, they also all just passed out from heat and anoxia.
Yep.
And nobody's traumatized by it? Nobody's bothered in the slightest?
That's life on a spaceship for you. But yes, back to talking about why this episode. Because we officially were still in the opening stream. Also, when I originally brought this up, I forgot that it was an Alexander episode, which are traditionally not my favorite.
Right.
Because, like you said, manufactured peril, I've always found the addition of Alexander as a character to be a little bit manufactured. It's like, oh, yes, let's give the tough, big security chief something to, like, deal with his feelings, I suppose. Or, like, the character who's famously renowned for not having any feelings to...
He'd be very bad at, like, analyzing and expressing them.
And yes, like here, surprise kid. I did love his parents, by the way, the Roshenkos. I always love how they're like, oh, how's our little Worf going? And like the Rush, yes. I always love those. The Roshenko episodes with those I always think are amusing.
I think his dad is the same actor who played Susan Ivanova's uncle.
Oh.
Yeah. Who came to the family to sit Shiva with her when one of her family members passed. I think I'm going to get you to come around to Alexander one of these days, because I certainly have. Because so my warp core, my primary warp core, is the total superfluousness of this science B plot, which could have been interesting if it had some kind of like allegorical correlation to what's happening.
Yeah.
It's a little bit in the title. The cost of living is that, you devour other things and, they can have whatever. But it's in no way allegorical to what Loxana is going through. Whereas Loxana's experience and Alexander's experience are really, really similar and related. And this is how they found one another.
Yeah.
And why she has a lot to learn from him.
I mean, I have that written down because Loxana is able to admit to Alexander things that she isn't able to admit to herself. Like, that's essentially what this...
very good.
What it boils down to, I think, in this episode, the interaction between the two. She gets to see both sides of a particular kind of conflict, and realize that she is in one position, in one situation, and Alexander is in that same position, and as she's like consoling him or trying to help him along in her own way.
And he's doing the same for her.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he has a line, we're going to get there. Oh my God, we're just blasting through this episode now. He says that...
All he cares about are rules. I'm supposed to do everything right all the time. I don't know how.
He has these impulses to deal with. A lot of the world is new. He always feels like he's not doing things well enough. And I think that's really true for Loxana as well.
Yes.
Which is masked by that. There are better words than overbearing, but very present, like very leaning on her charisma.
I'll get back to why I think that overbearing is all right. Has appropriate, and because we're going to get there in a minute. All right. So let's dive in. So after we have dealt with the asteroid situation, which caused the nitrous parasite to be picked up.
Yep.
Was it nitrile parasite?
Nitrite or nitrium.
Nitrium.
A metal that doesn't exist.
No.
The captain comes up with a solution. He's the one who suggests...
Activate a deflector dish. If we project a particle beam, we may be able to produce a disruptive nuclear effect within the core. Aye, sir.
The captain, who's famously not a scientist.
Yeah.
And apparently nobody else on the bridge, has these bright ideas. But, Patrick Stewart, he looks so amazing when he's just standing around giving orders.
But now we have a counseling session between Worf, Alexander, and Troy.
We watched the whole opening credits this time. This is one of those ones.
Yes.
Did you notice that the Star Trek The Next Generation logo has the sort of streaks this time? I think they only did that in season 5.
Oh, I know. I can see it on the GIF, yes, but it did not occur to me that was something that happened while we were watching it. Worf is having trouble parenting Alexander because basically Alexander won't do as he's told all the time.
Yeah.
And Alexander basically protests that what his father wants is unfair. Sounds like a fairly typical parent-child problem, but it's exaggerated here because Worf being the strict warrior, Klingon discipline, and Alexander being... I mean, Alexander's mother was...
Kalar.
Yes, she was a full Klingon, right? So
I think she was also half Klingon.
She was
actually.
half Klingon,
but she embraced her human side, and she was nice and casual about it.
So that makes Alexander 3/4 Klingon.
Ethnically, if not perhaps culturally, although I think
single drop theory.
Oh, good grief! No. Actually, I think Kalar, she was something like she was an emissary. So she was kind of a go-between between the Federation and Klingon cultures. So she was actually like way more Klingon culturally, or more experienced with Klingon culture than Worf was.
Well, Worf he's the typical orphan kid growing up trying to identify with his birth culture. Yeah. In many ways, which are like not necessarily always correct. It's just like his image of Klingon culture, what he can learn from basically TV and Wikipedia. Yeah,
which is an understandable experience. I mean, a lot of people have that with trying to make a connection with ancestral experience. We talked about like the Scots-American perspective in Sub Rosa. And in the case of an orphan, like he was, as a child, different from everyone else, from all the other children.
Right, yes.
He has some very traumatic memories of that, but he was always seen as a Klingon, something that he didn't know how to be. Yeah. And so it does kind of make sense that he would reach for that. So they're sitting on opposite sides of a wide pink couch. Everything's like pink and lavender and teal, and it's very, very sort of...
Very calming, soothing colours for a counsellor's office.
Except... There's these glass panels behind Alexander, and I know they're supposed to look like sort of soothing and artsy, but it looks like blood spatter dripping down like surgical curtains.
Yes. I mean, you're just still in the mind of last night's Halloween party.
You had so much fake blood on you.
Yes.
How long did you have to scrub to get it all off?
Actually, not as much as I thought it would be. Like, apparently once it was dried up, it came off really easy in the shower. It's like when I tried to wash it off my hands when it was still wet, it wouldn't go.
Why?
But after it dried up on my skin after the entire evening party, then after I got in the shower when I was home, it was gone in a matter of moments.
You and your boyfriend made an excellent Tucker and Dale versus
Thank you, yes.
versus Evil, and I really appreciate your boyfriend had taken a chainsaw and replaced the chain with candy necklaces, which was such a good idea.
Would you like to chew on my chainsaw blade?
And that's how you get the murder camp, as is the...
I suppose, yes.
The conceit of Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
It may be hard to imagine right now, but eventually most children come to appreciate their parents.
Troy gets called in, like Riker calls her and it's like, oh, your mother just arrived.
On the other hand...
You can see this exasperated sigh almost. And then again, not everybody does.
So I thought that there was, during this counselling session, before we quickly move on, like, they're both expressing their frustration with each other, the father and son.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if what Deanna proposes is actually like good advice, because she said, why don't you simply draw up a contract?
Right.
And Alexander, he's a future sort of anti-fascist rebel, just like
so he's like, look, we just write down what I have to do, and he
recognizes the power imbalance.
Yes.
You mean he tells me what he wants and I have to do it?
Where he finds an ally later on with...
True. Although, I mean, I can see Deanna's point here, because, the power imbalance is there and is always going to be there. But as Troy says...
You must make a list of your responsibilities too.
And I think that's more like probably like bringing a little bit more, at least codifying a little bit more, or making it more visible to Alexander, the things that Worf does for him.
That's
for his benefit. So that's...
And there's certainly a chance that that's something that Alexander would respond to, but there's also a chance that that's just not something that's going to work for them.
But, I'm not a child psychologist, far from.
And Lwaxana has this amazing power move that she does, which is to yell over somebody else's comm badge to talk to whoever she wants to talk to without opening a channel herself. Because she's in the transporter room with Riker.
Deanna, my dear, it's Mother!
I mean, she doesn't have a comm badge, and she's famously got trouble in communicating with the ship systems. And my headcanon is that because the computer doesn't recognize that it's like someone else's voice.
Yes, because it's also Major Barrett.
Yes.
That's what she's talking about.
Oh dear, I think your replicator is having a nervous collapse.
Oh, and we have Karel Struiken, Mr. Hom.
Yes.
Also known as Lurch
doesn't have a big role in this episode, just standing a little bit and nodding and looming. Looming.
Nods are fantastic.
Yes.
I think this is his last appearance on the show.
Mum and daughter have a quick talk together where, it becomes painfully obvious that Loxana is going into not quite an arranged... Well, it is an arranged marriage. It's just like she arranged it herself.
It's computer dating, right? It's online dating. This is 1992.
Yeah.
Right? Because you see Deanna sort of sitting down like, whoa, you're getting married? And she's flabbergasted. And you've never met him before?
Loxana is super defensive. And Deanna rightfully points out like, no.
I only asked who he is and where you met him. Those are not unusual questions.
Loxana's trying to breeze past it.
Right, that's a good expression. Yeah, breeze past it.
She is deeply insecure about this decision that she's made.
Absolutely, yes.
Right? And she just doesn't want to admit it to anyone. She wants people to join her in this fiction that she's created around herself, which is a magical solution to this feeling of loneliness.
As she later confesses to Alexander. They're interrupted by Worf and Alexander, who are coming in there with a problem in writing up the contract, which is subsequently completely ignored.
Yes.
Because it turns into Loxana sweeping off Alexander, I think.
Yes.
Does that already happen? As he calls her my little warrior.
Well, she has a conversation with him, and she immediately takes his side.
The boy is unreasonable.
Well, of course he's unreasonable. He's a child.
Which is a very valid point.
Which is really valid, like wildness. I'm sitting here next to your kitty, Pip, who has been nicknamed the defendant for her endless transgressions. And she is a wild little kitty. She needs a lot of exercise and stimulus and just go and do things.
I have many, many scars on my back, shoulders, legs, because she is a rambunctious little kitten. Yeah, she likes to climb up my everybody's trousers, shirts, whatever.
I'm just going to have to buy new jeans because these are going to be ripped, and that's not my fashion.
Chief Engineer Greg here. That's the same for my little gremlin Void.
But that's totally okay because I remember there was a television series called Legion. Based on the X-Men. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Oh, here I was hoping we were going to turn this into a Legion podcast. I'm like, damn it.
There's a fantastic speech at one point given by a parental figure to their growing child. I think I know it almost by heart. He says, when you were little, we let you be wild because wildness is important.
Yeah.
And then as you got older, we gave you structure because structure makes you feel safe.
Yes.
And that's the secret because when you feel safe as a child, you'll feel safe for the rest of your life.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point, yeah.
And so, that sort of respect for wildness, I don't see that coming from Deanna. And Loxana even tries to point out to her all the criticisms that Deanna has.
You're not helping by giving him a lot of mixed messages.
I exposed you to all sorts of mixed messages. When you were that age, you still turned out deadly dull.
She's not being very respectful to her daughter.
No, but she never is. And she has very little respectful to anybody. I mean, that kind of brings us to my earlier point here. Because we have a little walk and talk between Picard and Riker, where Picard literally complains to Riker that
I will not have that woman continuing to use this ship for her convenience simply because her daughter happens to be one of my officers.
Which he lets her do.
Yeah.
She might be the holder of the chalice of Re, which is just a bit of an old dusty cup, if I as I recall that Deanna describing it in at some point. But somehow she just breezes in, and everybody just caves. We've got this multi-billion credit starship, which is just oh yeah, we're just going to go over here because this person that happens to be the mother of the ship's counselor needs a lift.
It is lampshaded quite nicely, yeah.
It is lampshaded beautifully by Picard going well, if it allows me to give her away Loxana Troy, then I'm in. It's which is the redeeming factor. But
you see Riker smirking throughout all this.
Riker can't get the smile of his face the entire episode. It's that's what I mean with her overbearing personality. It's she just swoops in and everybody just does her bidding, even though it makes no sense.
I mean, she is a person of renown. She has a diplomatic role.
What's her diplomatic role?
Well, on Star Trek, it doesn't matter very much.
Chief Greg, can you tell us what the diplomatic role of Loxana Troy is?
So Loxana Troy was simply just an ambassador for the planet Beta Z. Particularly given that she was a daughter of the fifth house of Beta Z, that's just where her ambassadorship came from.
Thanks, Chief.
Yeah.
Look, it doesn't matter how else you're going to... This is like Wagon Train in Space. This is how you write episodes. You have 20 different entry points for new characters built into your show.
Oh, true.
Here's where I really sort of defend Loxana. Yes, she's a big person. I'm thinking now also about an episode that we definitely should watch sometime of Deep Space Nine, where she and Odo get stuck in a lift together, and she's
I remember that one.
Crazy for Odo.
Yes.
and he's like giving a lot of spoilers for a 20-something-year-old show. Odo is deteriorating because he can't hold his shape for as long as he needs to, and he's very embarrassed about that. And she takes off her wig.
Yes, I remember the episode, and basically she holds out her dress and lets him what he normally does in his bucket, which is turn into a pile of goo.
Yeah,
and she keeps him safe. So yes, no.
But there's a very important thing that she says during that exchange, because Odo says, "But your hair looks fine. Like, you don't need a wig. You have lovely hair." And she says, "No,
it looks ordinary. I've never cared to be ordinary."
Yeah, very good point. Yeah,
because I'm actually getting a little bit emotional thinking about this now, because like she's a lonely woman. She's widowed for many years. She's lost a child, as we learn much later.
Oh, yeah.
Something that she didn't process very well.
No, I mean that's kind of like her thing.
And so she comes in here, right, and she seems all overbearing, and she's like throwing herself at Captain Picard and just feeding off of his annoyance, because, you know, as a kid or as an older person, any attention you can get is, you know, worth it.
I guess that's like, she's still a little bit in that phase that.
And I'm fully convinced that the days that she spends on the Enterprise are the highlight of her year. And she writes about them in her journals, like that she got to spend time with. And my daughter, she's so busy because she's got a very important job, and she's doing all these wonderful things with her education,
which you won't acknowledge to the person in question.
But, hey, that's how it goes sometimes.
Yes, we go to Alexander waiting in Troy's office when Lwaxana barges in, wondering what he's doing here. And it turns out he's early for his appointment because
she thought he was being punished for something.
Yes.
No,
it's just a regular appointment. But she coaxes out of him that he's...
I wanted to leave before my father got back.
And she just hugs him immediately.
Yes.
And she just shares affection with this child, for whom that's perfectly welcome. It's something that is probably his father doesn't do enough.
No, if at all. I mean, Worf doesn't seem the hugging type.
Yeah, which is okay. You know, everybody enjoys different things. But as a child, I can certainly I enjoyed my relatives. Like I come from a quite a ridiculous number of formidable women and men with great senses of humor, and I've always enjoyed that closeness. And there's a really important bit that he says.
Sense of humor in your family, I know. I mean, it's...
Don't... Okay, you have bleeped that out, Chief Greg, because you won't give away the punchline to my uncle's 25-minute tractor joke.
Yes, okay.
Thank you for bleeping that out, Chief. There's a moment where Alexander says that he hates his dad.
I wish my mother were here. She died.
And she doesn't contradict him.
No.
She just lets him have those emotions. Her response, it's not really fair, is it?
Yeah, not a lot is fair. But you see, I think I've got written down, it's like Lwaxana's already...
So good.
That was earlier. It's like that was the opening scene when she was talking to Troy. It's like she's already trying to hide her own feelings, and you can see that getting stronger and stronger during the episode. She's like...
Yeah.
And she has to kind of externalize those feelings through Alexander, to confront them in herself.
I think that's really valid. I think that's what's happening even in this scene. Like, when he's letting his emotion out, he's making her feel safe. That this is someone that she can talk to as well, because he's doing it. He's got that courage.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have to, project the way she does with others. I think that's a really good idea.
To lighten the mood...
I'll bet you've never been to a colony of free spirits.
What do they do there?
Whatever they want.
What do they do?
People
Whatever.
who don't quite fit other people's rules.
Right. Yes.
Personally, I come for the mud baths.
I love that she does this so often. She knocks to get the computer's attention, which is so great.
It's like, a little knock on the panel. It's a little bit in line with not quite grasping the level of technology like Scotty famously did in the
Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Hello,
yes.
Computer.
And then the guy points at the mouse and he picks it up. It goes talks into the mouse.
Just use the keyboard. How quaint.
Yeah. But yes, they come to this holodeck simulation of this colony of free thinkers. The wind spirit guardian who are
See, only those whose hearts are joyous may enter.
That's really well done.
Right. Yes, it's like a mime with a floating head mime in a ball.
I had the name written down for this person. I don't know if I can find it straight away. Oh, yes. Larry Hankin. I know that name. Chief, where do we know Larry Hankin from?
Oh boy, so Larry Hankin has been in a lot. He was in Alf, he was in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, he was in Pretty Woman, Dragnet, Home Alone, Seinfeld, Married with Children, Billy Madison, he was in Star Trek Voyager, Friends, Party of Five, Malcolm in the Middle, Monk. Most notably recently, he was in a couple of episodes of Breaking Bad as well as El Camino, the Breaking Bad movie, as Old Joe. He has been in a ton of things, working for decades. So there's a very good chance that you have seen him in at least something that Larry Hankin has done before.
So he was not originally part of principal photography, filmed the scenes during the production of Imaginary Friend, a later episode. Because, his job was, blue screen.
Yeah.
And then being edited. And he's this very colourful, bald-headed, like Rubik's Cube patterned head in what looks like a spherical bubble, just flying around to delight and challenge people. Fantastic expressions and, like, holding his breath and making his squares change colour.
Yeah. And a few other things. There's a fire, what's it called? A fire juggler? No, a fire
sculptor.
That's it, yes.
This alien woman, like, blowing fire, geometric shapes, and Roxana guides Alexander past them. We're having a chat with her later on when we're done with our mud bath.
Yes, and a juggler with a bit of a halo for ears, or ears for a halo, whatever you want to choose.
Oh, yes. He's got long, pointy ears that connect on the back of his head.
Yes, a little bit like the Orville.
Oh, wow, yeah. I wonder what that does.
Yeah, I guess it's weird. I mean, it's easy if you want to grab him by the back of the head. But
yeah. Not enough aliens have antlers.
Oh, good point.
We are having guests for Laughing Hour. Would you care to join us?
We'd love to.
No, thank you.
Yes.
No.
Why do you always say no when I say yes?
I don't.
You just did.
There you go again.
To me, that felt a little bit like the Monty Python sketch, where it's like, I'd like to have some argument. All right, well, I can do arguments. Would you like? What would you like to talk about? And it's like, and he just basically contradicts everything that he says. Like you're just saying, contradicting anything I say. No, I'm not.
That's not an argument. Yes, it is. And Alexander asks the juggler about these people. Like,
why are they arguing?
They're friends. They love contradiction. They thrive on challenge. They flourish in conflict.
Who else are you going to fight with? That's not a great lesson to learn.
Well, no, but I do recognize a little bit of you and I in there. Like, I mean, we have
no, you don't.
We have very long, and very arguments with each other. So and we record about an hour and a half of them every week on this podcast.
It is a lot of fun, though, isn't it?
It is.
No, it isn't. Is what you're supposed to say.
Oh, sorry.
So this juggler, he's doing okay. What do you call this move that he's doing?
That's a 3-ball cascade. It's a fairly basic juggling move. It's actually the basic juggling move.
It looks great.
And I know. You asked.
He's telling them about that they're his world, and he takes care of them, and he wouldn't drop them.
He never drops them, no.
They only fly where he directs.
And this weird Diogenes type guy shows up.
Oh, good pull.
Who just, like, spouts some platitude, I suppose.
Every moment requires a purpose.
No, it doesn't.
Every purpose requires a plan.
The higher you are, the fewer joints you need to roll, or something. Something along those lines. I'm not entirely sure what point they're getting at here. But it's something that Alexander cottons onto immediately, and he just goes back to the arguing pair and proclaims that same thing right back at them, which kind of leaves them standing there dumbfounded, and Alexander walking off with a smug little grin on his face.
Because Roxana immediately said,
well, that's a conversation stopper if I ever heard one.
And he takes that lesson.
Yes.
And she's so impressed with him. Like the mind of a child that opens up and wisdom seeps in. And you want to see more, she identifies, than just conflict and battle, right?
Yes. Even though she continuously calls him my little warrior.
It's a nickname that he seems to enjoy as a Klingon. And also, you have uncles and aunts, right?
Yes.
And people who fill similar roles in your childhood. Sometimes they pick names for you and they just stick with them.
Yeah.
And it feels sort of magical and you're powerless against it. But it's also really...
I don't think I ever had a nickname from any of my family. No.
My Aunt Paula liked to question my gender identity by calling me Nicolina, which is not a normal name, not a variation.
That is not a female version of Nicholas, no.
And she also faced me with ontological paradoxes, like, are you bad boy or good girl? I'm like, so she just picked it, and that's who I am to her now, and it gives you a sort of special connection to a relationship. Worf is tidying up after Alexander, grumbling over a comparatively minor effort.
Yes.
But he has a very high standard for tidiness, does Worf. And in walks Deanna.
Isn't Alexander supposed to be with you?
He didn't show up for his appointment. I assumed he must still be here.
Oh, computer, where's Alexander?
Alexander Roshenko is on holodeck 2.
Is he alone?
He is with Lwaxana Troi.
Ah, great. You can see there's some massive eye rolls in this episode. I really do. Michael Dorn does a good eye roll. I mean, he doesn't, can't hold a candle to, crikey, what's his name now? Anthony Simcoe, but...
oh, well, yes. Who played Dargo on Farscape.
Yes.
And all these free spirits are now sitting in the mud baths.
Yes, they are crunching on edible cups.
Yeah.
And having light philosophical discussion.
So, what is mud?
Very fine sand and water, basically.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, there's no organic component to it?
Well, basically not.
Should I imagine mulch?
Mud is basically thin clay.
And clay is?
Silica particles in water.
Oh, is it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was more
traditionally mud is like you can have a mud pool, which is like in the forest, which, yes, of course, there's loads of organic material in there because it's just soaked topsoil, which is like turned into mud.
Right,
but
yeah.
Like for mud baths, I think it's like more of a thin clay mixture.
Okay. So it's much less unhygienic and parasite-laden than I was imagining.
Oh, yeah, no, totally not.
Because, like, some of them have clean hands with which they're holding their edible cups, and some of them...
have dirty hands, yes.
Have, dipped under the surface, but apparently it's fine. And Lwaxana has this really interesting philosophy that she shares with Alexander in the group, and it's about essentially, like, the Pixar film Inside Out.
Yes.
Every one of us has 1,000 different kinds of little people inside of us. And some of them want to get out and be wild, and some want to be sad or happy or inventive or even just go dancing. That's why we all have so many different urges at different times.
It's a really great way to explain to a younger person that, hey, we are not actually consistent.
Yeah.
And as adults, we try. We consider it a very high striving. And we sort of forget that it's not really true.
Yes. And also a good way of, explaining emotions and how they can lead you to do different things.
Yeah. And also the extremely sort of wise approach that you can benefit from these aspects, like recognizing what they are. You're not just led by them, you can consult with them. A phrase that I learned several years ago that I really got value out of, which is like, sometimes you have to feel what you need to feel. There are things that you need to feel, and like denying those emotions doesn't help. So sometimes you just need to be sad for a while. Sometimes you just need to worry. And like it keeps haunting you because you don't actually complete the worrying that you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Which of course...
Work your way through it and emerge out the other end.
Yeah. Presuming that the circumstances in your brain permit you to do that.
When it has passed through me, only I will remain. As we're like throwing science fiction references in anyway, might as well get that one in there.
Hell yeah, thank you. Time for the entertainment.
Yes.
A naked body-painted woman dances for the amusement of a child in a mud bath, and I love it.
Sure, yes.
It's awesome. She's graceful, it's cool, there's so many colours.
This witnessed by Troi and Worf, who have entered the holodeck. Worf had a little interaction with the wind spirit up to the point where he just basically pops its bubble and wanders on. Rude.
Well, murder, maybe.
Well,
I don't know.
It's a holodeck, that's permitted.
You never see... Ooh, whoa, okay, yes.
People,
We've seen some of his calisthenics exercises.
That too. Also, the 1930s speakeasy, mobster...
Dixon Hill, yeah.
Yeah, Dixon Hill things. Like, there's a lot of Tommy gun shooting there and people getting done in. So, yeah, this seems to be, acceptable on the holodeck.
Little one, Mr. Wolf, come join us.
And now she's back in one of her truly amazing outfits, snacking on some fruit and just really trying to avoid her daughter's questions.
Yes.
And the criticism that she's given, like, hey, there's actually a problem in the relationship between, and I have a solution for it.
I have a plan, and you're undermining it.
Yeah, and this is actually my job, and you're going to go away, and I'm going to have to deal with this. And also...
Anyway, why aren't you all absorbed in your wedding plans? It's only 3 days away.
Yeah. Oh, I'm letting Lurch to handle the. Sorry, Mr. Holm. Handle the drudgery of the affairs.
I can completely understand this from Diana's point of view, because, like...
She should be obsessed with this, yeah. If this is... I mean, this kind of shows to Diana, I suppose, that her mom's not into the as much into the wedding as she professes. That is, she's like, oh, yeah, she should be obsessed with this and, like, dealing with every minute detail. But just the fact that she's letting Mr. Holm...
Because she had a Betazoid, like, quinceañera that her mother organised for a year and a half in advance.
No, very cool. Yeah.
Right? And she's just absolutely flabbergasted.
Loxana orders some tea and gets a bit of a sausage party.
You make everything into such a mystery. There is no mystery, Deanna. Except about this Petrokian sausage.
It's covered in sausage, but she still drinks the sausage water.
Yes.
It doesn't occur to her to reject it, because I wanted some... Okay, well...
But this is the lead-in to the B-plot, which is the problem with the nitrile-eating entity.
I don't care.
Okay.
I just hard don't care. So you tell the audience about all this nonsense that doesn't need to be in there, and it can just be completely skipped.
Okay, so there's like, basically, Geordi and Data go on a search through the ship. They keep finding...
they've got new outfits. Sorry, I'm back. I care again. They've got new outfits for crawling through Jeffrey's tubes.
Jeffrey tube, like overalls that they kind of like throw on so that presumably, I guess, they don't get dirty in the spotlessly clean Jeffrey tubes where I've never seen even a speck of dust which wouldn't put there by the prop department.
I know. And normally they don't bother to change before going into the tubes. They've got these...
But there was like... I mean, it was very clever because like we can definitely see the influence of the Nickelodeon channel on this episode.
What?
Well, the goo that's leaking from the...
Oh!
Let's jump through this. So
okay, great, because I need a bathroom break.
Oh, okay.
No, you tell the audience whatever...
Okay, I mean, I'm willing to give it a shot.
Really? Okay, let's do this.
All right, so during the time for one bathroom break to tell you the B-plot, Data and Geordi basically go on a quest where they have to find out what's going on. They slowly manage to discover that there is some sort of entity on board which is eating this one particular kind of metal out of every system, which is creating a cascading effect of systems slowly failing one by one, creating bigger and bigger problems on board the Enterprise. Notably is one when they are in warp at some point and they notice that the inertial stabilizers start failing, to which my first thought was, like, Picard says, like, okay, let's drop out of warp. And I'm like, no, if the inertial stabilizers are failing, you don't really want to drop out of warp, because if they fail at that exact moment, then, you know, everybody ends up like a fine mist on the view screen. And, like, it's a terrible bore to have to clean that up. But throughout several intermittent scenes, the pair managed to figure out...
We believe the parasites came through the ship's hull after we destroyed the asteroid near Tessin 3.
And that the only way to get rid of it is presumably...
The parasites could possibly be lured back to the asteroids for a meal that's more appealing than we are.
And thereby leaving it free to keep going. It's going to take 5 hours and 20 minutes or something to get there at Warp 9, which they eventually managed to slow down. More problems arrive. Geordi mentions that the warp core, not the warp core, the lithium chamber.
Yes, I'm back.
Yes, he's back.
I've actually been listening with great interest because, Kay, you're actually telling it like it's really exciting.
Okay, well,
I'm really enjoying this.
And manages to eventually, this is the scene we were referring to earlier, that everybody's basically passed out on board of the bridge.
Do you notice how everybody's got sweat stains except Data?
Yes. Oh, very cool. Yes.
Right?
Actually, I didn't notice that everybody had. I noticed that Picard had them, but and now that you mention it, I can see them on Riker as well.
Reconfigure hydrogen plasma mixture to include 30% nitrium.
Mixture complete.
Which indeed causes the alien entity to go to the asteroid. Where I'm thinking, like, if you just why didn't they just set up like a containment field in one of the hangars, pump it full of nitrilium gas, and like try to get them to coalesce in that way, in that area, you know,
and then like, sort of eject them out into space.
Yeah, for instance,
yeah, that's just.
I mean, because they couldn't like detect them; they can only monitor them through the
systems that are failing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, okay, back to the
now that
important part.
All the boring
of the story.
stuff is dealt with. Loxana's trying on a dress. And she's got a silver wig on to match the dress, which is not very impressive with. And at home, he's got pins held between his lips.
And they're kind of like pearlescent or glowing even.
They're gorgeous.
And he's got this little dressmaker's cushion on his wrist.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes, that's where you're traditionally supposed to keep the pins, but which even has them more, but he also has them in his mouth. And she's like, well, it's not very good, is it? Like,
Perhaps,
if we lower the bodice?
A little bit.
And he looks, no, that's not going to help. A little bit.
Raise the hemline then.
Also checks out.
No,
that's
again,
also-
nothing. Yes, Alexander shows up.
Yeah, now he comes to visit her, and she's immediately delighted.
Alexander! Oh, my little warrior. Come here.
This is where she's able to really open up to him.
Yes, I mean, he comes to apologize for getting into trouble, and she's like, oh, I don't get into trouble.
No. Well, she says, I wasn't really in any trouble.
Yeah.
She's had much worse fights with her daughter.
Oh.
That she's incurred her daughter's displeasure to a far greater degree. So she takes him over to sit down and explain what marriage is. When you spend the rest of your life together, the whole life. And so, okay, there must be something, says Alexander.
Well, if you're young and lucky, it'll be someone you like a lot, yes.
She had that, like her husband, a human Starfleet officer, Mr. Troy.
But if you get older, then your options dwindle, the pool gets smaller, and
Are you very old?
And that really makes her think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can first there's a little bit of outrage on her face as how dare you ask that question, but then you can see some dawning realization.
And when you do get older and can no longer pick and choose from whatever may come your way.
And she says, then you do what we call compromise, and it keeps you from being afraid. And I'm actually choking up here. Because here's the thing. When this was being filmed, this was 2 weeks after Majel Roddenberry had buried her husband, Gene.
Oh, sheesh. Harsh.
Well, there's something kind of
No.
She's doing an amazingly very effective job here.
Yeah.
And even though the lines aren't specifically about her life experience, her experience with Gene was complicated. He was what some might call a philanderer. Well, also maybe polyamorous to a certain degree. We never really spoke about that degree of openness, but he had a brief sexual relationship with Nichelle Nichols, which, to my memory of how the story was told, was quite consensual and reciprocal. But pardon me if that's not the case. Chief?
So according to Nichelle Nichols' autobiography, yes, the affair was a consensual one.
Thank you. Yep. But so, she's being really open about how this is her solution to being alone and, afraid, and having someone around to actually care about her.
Yeah.
Which is hugely attractive to someone who, she doesn't have her daughter around who cares about her, because her daughter is off doing important things.
As she's specifically mentioned.
She's attracted to men who don't really appreciate everything about her.
Yeah.
Right? She's attracted to Picard. She's attracted to Odo. These fantastic, glorious men to whom she could add, her own life experience and wisdom, but they're not at times in their life where they want that.
Unlike the minister, who shortly arrives on board the Enterprise.
How the did they get matched?
My dear, your compatibility profile doesn't do you justice.
She probably lied.
I had that written down. She for defo wrote down that she's daughter of the fifth house and holder of the sacred chalice of Reeks.
Exactly.
I'm always doing galas, and when I'm not at a gala, I'm at a regatta. Ha ha ha.
Exactly. That's
you're completely right. She lied on her profile, and she got a bad match. Oh, Loxana, why do you keep doing this to yourself? Just here's the solution. That'll be my deleted scene, where at the end she realizes, okay, we're going back to computer dating, but I'm having Alexander write my profile form and pick the photos. Can you imagine how happy she'd be?
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I mean, it'd be a hell of a lot more interesting for her.
Right!
The minister has brought his protocol master,
Urko, whom she calls Jerko.
We're not going to...
And my escort, who need not be addressed in this company, Protocol Master Erko.
Who does interrupt briefly when she tries to kiss him no need to be this familiar at this time. And yes, he's at this point still looking forward to marrying her.
Is this Shaddam IV?
Ooh, you mean from the David Lynch?
Yeah.
Could be. He's got a similar shape of head, but...
Wait, no, that was Max von Sydow, and this is not Max von Sydow.
Okay, I have no idea.
Chief!
Campio is not played by Jose Ferrer, who played Emperor Shaddam IV in David Lynch's Dune in 1984. Jose Ferrer actually had already passed away by the time of this filming, very recently. So this is actually played by Tony Jay, who I would personally say is most well known, for me at least, as Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the only Disney villain whose villain song is "Damn, I'm Horny."
Thanks. I can't wait to listen back to this episode and find out
what
that was okay. It's so frustrating that we have to wait so long before we hear the actual answer. But hey, whenever we do, we always really appreciate it. I also recognize Jerko.
Yeah.
I recognize him. Chief, who's he?
So Urko is played by Patrick Cronin, who was a character actor in a number of things. Rocky V, Hill Street Blues, Days of Our Lives, Sabrina the Teenage Witch. He was in Seinfeld, Home Improvement. He had a very heavy presence in the 90s, and he definitely has one of those faces that's just very recognizable. However, I can't seem to find anything that really stands out to me. It's like, oh yes, that's exactly who he is.
God, I really have to sort of write in my calendar to really listen to this episode, because I just can't wait to find out. You know, hey, this is one of the rare episodes where Picard offers to shake someone's hand.
Oh,
he doesn't do it very often,
and it immediately gets ignored. Basically,
that's the only reason.
I mean, I'm kind of surprised actually that if this is the not their custom, that he actually offered to shake his hand, that he didn't do his research. It's like, how do we greet these? And if it is, I mean, if he did do his research, then it's like a bit of a slight from the ambassador, although he does bow.
Yes, the ambassador bows,
which suggests that like Picard didn't do his homework.
Yeah. There was a case where a Dutch minister, a woman offered to shake the hand of a Muslim imam, which he declined.
Yeah.
And like there was a bit of a kerfuffle about that, but like it, you know, for a practitioner of Islam, it would be improper for unmarried and unrelated men and women to touch.
Yeah.
And so I think he responded by bowing.
Yes.
But like that's a case, hey, you've actually just put somebody else in a really uncomfortable position,
right,
where they can either disrespect you and like contradict their
or
their
compromise their own,
And so, yeah, a bow always works, right?
Usually, yes.
Everywhere on Earth. Even in places where, like, eye contact, it's not always appreciated everywhere.
No, true. Meanwhile, Alexander and Worf are having a little bit of a kerfuffle, because Alexander is having his laughing hour, which amounts to him shouting, "Ha!" every 15 seconds.
I find it very upsetting.
Yeah. Like, I mean, as does Worf.
That is enough, please.
He's bullying his dad.
Pretty much.
Right? He's using this power.
As kids do. So let's see how we can annoy them.
Do you notice that the bat'leth melted and turned into gelatin in the background? Something I never noticed before until we watched it just now. Yeah, it starts with a shot of the bat'leth on the wall, and it's a dripping goo.
Right, yes. No, I hadn't seen that. But Worf's trying to sit him down and have dinner, and he's like,
I promised to meet Mrs. Troy for another lesson in happy wisdom. Ha!
And there's like, well...
Yeah, but it's your dinner hour.
Yes.
Oh, so should a warrior break his word?
Yes.
Oh,
like, no, you shouldn't. Okay, by the no, you're not, etc.
You also shouldn't give your word about something that you're not able to commit to. When I watched this, there was a children's book for parents narrated by Samuel L. Jackson in the audiobook version called Go the F*** to Sleep. Yes. Yeah. Which has a sequel, which is just f***ing eat.
Yes.
Much in the way that I've seen you pick up the defendant and confront her with the fact that food exists and is a thing that you, especially you, who is so active and rambunctious, you need to eat. And she goes, oh, yeah, that exists. And until she gets distracted again.
And she gets a little sniff, and then it's... but yeah.
What are they eating? Like, that's a nice plate of food. There seems to be a lot more vegetables than...
Yes, one of the Brussels sprouts kind of gets Worf's ire at the end as it gets squished between his fingers.
Yes. When Alexander runs away.
Yes, to go see Loxana, who is having nuptial arrangements with Calippo, or whatever his name was.
Campio.
It's a very Italian name, isn't it?
Yeah.
It sounds
Italian to our ears.
Yes.
With what we were familiar with.
She immediately allows herself to get distracted by Alexander, much to Campio's chagrin.
Surely there'll be other occasions for you to spend time with the boy.
And even more to the chagrin of his ceremonial master.
Minister, the woman should not be addressing you in the familiar.
And her daughter.
Mother, we've come for Alexander. Please forgive the intrusion.
And Alexander's father.
It is Alexander's dinner hour.
Everybody shows up, and
this quartet of people just yelling at her and disapproving of her, and she's doing her very best to keep everyone happy while still doing what she wants to do.
Right, she's basically flaunting everybody's authority here.
Flouting. That's the word you're looking for.
Flouting, yes.
Yeah, flaunting is showing off, and flouting is disregarding.
Right, yes,
no, sorry. You know, this is the sort of Klingon word of the day, essentially.
Basically,
I wonder if flout's in the dictionary.
Basically gets them arguing amongst each other and sneaks off with Alexander. Because Troy eventually goes like, I think the subject of our talks has disappeared.
She is, of course, the first person to notice this because she's watched her mother pull this particular power move many times. I wonder if she's ever done it herself, because it is an excellent power move.
It is, just like get everybody arguing, and because yes, like the master of ceremony says, like, no, this must be spoken about now, and she's like, well, okay, we'll just be half an hour then. It's like, you really don't understand what now means, do you?
Yeah. This is something that probably children can relate to a lot. Because you have, as a child, like desires that, or well, not just as a child, but sometimes you just have desires that you absolutely do not want to compromise. And you want the entire world to adapt to it, to figure out some way that nobody's mad at you, but you can still do this thing that you want the most right now. Because we have these little people inside us, and they have incredibly powerful needs. And the defendant sitting next to me right now, sometimes she just needs to hunt.
Yeah.
And if it's not going to be a toy, then it's going to be it's going to be your
My
pen.
fingers, yes.
While you're trying to write in this episode.
Yes.
I watched her sort of sitting next to you, watching the backside of your pen, just, I'm going to nibble you.
To the minister's credit, he gives Loxana a lot of leeway here. He's willing to accommodate her much further than his minister of ceremony would have normally allowed. But in the end, she just runs off, and they end up back in the holodeck.
Where there's a scene that I actually find really tragic. Because they find the juggler who's sad and he doesn't have his balls anymore.
No, because he ate them.
He caught one in his mouth and it tasted good, so he ate it. And then he had everything's gone, and he says,
if you ever have a world, plan ahead. Don't eat it.
And Alexander laughs, and this is horrifying.
It is, but I think, to be honest, I think this is just the holodeck trying to like put a little life's lesson here in this. This is not a real person. It's a holodeck creation. It's probably based on a real person. It might be. But it's like,
wouldn't the response be like compassion or commiseration with someone who's just super sad?
I suppose.
Rather than laughing at it, which is what Loxana and...
During my student days, one of the people at the library wrote, like, we had this little book that like people just wrote nonsense in, and one of the other librarians wrote a little poem in there, which was like, it's a little bit relevant to this situation. It was like, yesterday my goldfish died. It happened somewhere late last night. I was looking for a midnight snack, but now I want my goldfish back.
Is your college friend a cat by any chance?
He might have turned out like
Alexander tries to give her some advice.
Yeah.
Now, maybe it's time to let one of those little people out.
And she goes like, huh, what? Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And he apologizes, and she realizes, like, I've just done something absolutely terrible. I've just shut down someone who was reaching out to me.
He was actually trying to help, yes.
And she hugs him, and then she notices that the hologram is failing.
Yes, the holodeck is starting to drool apart.
And the juggler starts juggling behind her, even though he doesn't have any balls anymore.
Yes, he's just like imaginary juggling.
And she takes him by the hand and says,
something's up. Yeah, I mean, that's something that you always have to give her. Like, whenever it comes down to the rubber meets the road, then Loxana is like not one to dawdle, and she'll try to like avoid it as long as possible. But when it becomes serious, then it has to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, more B plot.
Yeah, the B plot's completely unimportant. There's something in the elevator. They make it to the wherever, lights go off, and people are starting to sweat. And who cares?
Yes, the alien entity is returned to the asteroid, and after emergency repairs have been made,
and everybody wakes up again.
It is time for the wedding.
Nobody's dead.
Of course not,
because
we need them next time round, and they've got long-term contracts.
Yeah. I mean, on a ship with over 1,000 people, including like multiple hospitals and childcare facilities and like aliens and whatever, and we just subject them all to anoxia, and the extremely fit people on the bridge all wake up about the same time, and everybody else is equally fine.
Well, they wake up.
No precautions needed.
They wake up after life support is more or less, more power is returned back to life support, and like the systems can like, that makes sense.
I'm not a doctor.
No.
Not anymore. Not since the incident. Some might say I've never been a doctor, but I think that's a very limited view of what a doctor can be. But like in anesthesiology, the reason that it's its own discipline is it's really hard to get people unconscious without getting them dead.
Yeah.
Because there's awake, and then it's just a little bit of unconscious based on like body weight and metabolism and oxygenation. And then after that, it's pretty bad news.
Yeah.
So, like, where's... the
thing that,
consultation with Beverly to ensure that the patients are properly oxygenated. And
right. Well, I mean, I'm kind of surprised that, like even a ship like the Enterprise, which has such modern equipment, that they don't have, like, oxygen candles or lithium canisters for emergency scrubbing. Or like, put the bloody bridge crew in a spacesuit which has its own oxygen supply for,
Give
like...
them breathers.
Exactly, yeah. That's all you really need.
Even if you only have 5 bridge crew, let's give them the 5
let's give one to engineering as well.
Geordie's on the bridge.
Right.
Yeah, for some reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody's fine. Nobody's worried about the fact that they lost consciousness for several hours and we're in terrible danger. Now we're like a boring wedding. Well, there's some nice decorations.
Well, there's like the problem is like Loxana is late for her own wedding.
You think she'd at least get to her own wedding on time?
Campio is marching up and down. He's got some fun sort of wrinkles on his forehead.
Has he actually changed his outfit? Or is he
good question.
Is he still wearing the same outfit that he was wearing when he got on board?
Scrolling through the sheaves.
Same here.
I think not. Oh, he doesn't. It really takes a while before he shows up.
Yeah. He's not really an important character.
Nobody really cares. It is the same outfit.
It is the same outfit. So he just arrived on board in his wedding outfit, So
it
might just be
he's Leia Organa. Hey, Star Wars reference for our buddy Chief out there. He's Leia Organa to her Padme Amidala.
Okay, yeah.
Because I remember Carrie Fisher when she saw Star Wars Episode 1, on which she was, by the way, a script doctor. She had quite a career, like punching up other people's scripts. And she was just so envious that Natalie Portman, she gets a new hairstyle every time to walk through a door.
Yeah, and I had to do the same buns for the entire...
God, so envious.
Yeah.
All right, you had to mention Star Wars and costumes, and I'm a cosplayer, so I have to say this. So I counted up every single version of Leia's outfits that are on screen, including animated stuff, as well as Padme's stuff, including animated stuff. Leia had 15 distinct outfits throughout. Padme had 40. It is not even close. So, yeah, I can kind of understand if you're Carrie Fisher being like, damn, look at all the cool shit she gets to wear.
And finally she does show up. And she's taken Alexander's advice. Like, she's let out one of those little people inside her.
Yeah, and she's decided, like, I'm not going to compromise on this one thing. This is like, I'm going to do this wedding Betsy style.
And I love before we even see that she's in the nude, which I don't know that we knew that was a Betazoid wedding tradition before this episode.
Ooh, good question.
I mean, we know it now, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we know it like from earlier on in the episode when Diana exclaims, "You're not going to be naked at your own wedding?
A wedding dress?
Yeah, it's like
what?
Shock and affront.
Which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like Rom and his mother Moogie in Family Business and Deep Space Nine. Like, he was also like, "You're going to get dressed, but you get dressed in the house."
Yeah. But yes, no. The best one is Mr. Holmes' like little approving grin and nod when we hear the door opening.
And Worf and Picard are a bit shocked. Data takes everything in stride. Deanna, she's quite proud of her mother now, I think.
Yes.
And Alexander is delighted.
There's a little bit of shock on on Deanna's face. Worf is looking somewhat disapproving. There's
Riker and Beverly.
Yes. Beverly is just kind of like flabbergasted. As if she didn't know.
Yeah.
It's like...
okay, so this is what we're doing. And Riker's like, yeah, I knew all about this. Yeah. I dated a Betazoid for quite a while. We never got married, but I kind of really, really wanted to.
Yeah.
And then there's, like... What's his name? Clark...
Which one?
George. There's someone behind Beverly.
Oh.
Just a red-shirted person, not in dress uniform, I don't think. And he's just kind of got a very neutral stare. Like, it's not creepy. I can't even make a joke about it.
No.
But he's just capital A, capital T, also there.
Okay, yeah. I can't make
Oh, Campio does have a slightly different outfit. He has a sort of wrap around his chest, like a bandolier.
That wasn't there before. Okay.
Yeah. Jericho calls it infamous.
Yes.
Minister, this is infamous. Infamous. We must leave immediately.
And shields to Campio's eyes.
Yes, like he hasn't been getting an eyeful for the last 20 seconds at this point, but you know.
And maybe learning something new about like Betazoid anatomy that we didn't know.
Oh, yes. Who knows?
That third breast was a surprise, but a welcome one. Sorry, I walked over that with my pretty mediocre third breast joke. But let's have your joke, like in a completely clean recording. Please say the word that you just said.
I said her octoposoir.
There we go.
Where's that? Do we know where that's a reference from?
Ooh, I actually don't.
Drawn Together.
Oh, the animated series.
Yes.
Her bridegroom departs and smiling at, Deanna smiling as well.
Oh, yes.
And Loxana just gives a shrug. I think this is even, she's not wearing a wig. I think this is her hair.
Oh, Loxana?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
And she's wearing comparatively modest makeup.
But I mean, I can assume that, like, if there's no wedding dress, then there's no wedding wig allowed.
Exactly.
Either. It seems like a "this is how you are" moment, as far as I can get it in Betazoid culture.
Yeah, like Adam and Eve in the garden, like total innocence. You know, the difference between being naked and being nude. Like nude is just you don't have any clothes on.
Yeah.
Naked is you should have clothes on right now.
Yes. Cuts to the holodeck again, where it is now Diana still with her hair done up in... now she has done her hair up.
Roxana, yes.
Roxana, she's wearing a head pin. Diana has also still got her wedding hair going.
It's Diana.
Diana, sorry.
Yeah.
Diana, what am I saying?
I know. Diana is a name that we're
yes,
familiar with.
I guess I'm... she's got her, like, massive hair, beehive style almost, with curls coming down all the way to the mud.
Yeah, you want to keep it out of the mud.
Nipples are strategically below the mud on everybody. Even Alexander.
When you're having a mud bath, you kind of want it... Oh, you mean for television set?
Yes.
Yeah. And Worf isn't even showing any sort of shoulder cleavage.
No, he's like all the way down. It's almost like a head laying on the...
Yeah, he could take over for the wind dancer.
He looks like he's decapitated here or something. He's like... No idea why they have...
perfectly still because there's not a fleck of mud on his beard.
No, the makeup department must have had a field day with these scenes.
And she thanks Alexander.
I wanted to teach you how to grab the joys of living. And you turned around and taught me to not let go of them. How very mutual.
And Deanna says, well, hey, this is where we find out that she's actually there.
Yeah.
We still have to learn how to live in the real world. All of us.
Mm.
And she exceeds, but she says only when
necessary. Absolutely necessary.
And Worf gets to close with one of the funniest lines he's ever said.
You're just supposed to sit here.
Just like... and scene, yes.
Okay, so before we get to our deleted scenes, I've got to ask, how do you feel about Alexander now?
Ooh, I mean...
And I'm going to challenge you with like a few... Yeah. We've seen him, because you talked about him being a sort of a manufactured challenge for Worf.
Yes.
Right? And, this is how television is written, it's certainly true. But now we see like an entire episode being carried by him and Loxana, and how he's serving as like a mirror, but also like an unbiased mediator, right? Who's able to hear conflicts that adults have and reflect on them without the sort of baggage that we have, and actually come up with what seems like a much more reasonable solution, which is, well, hey,
I mean, from the mouth of babes, as they say.
Right.
It's, and I believe the thing that's supposed to come from them is truth, which is... well, there's a lot of adults tend to put things more circumspect ways and like beat about the bush, and especially in Loxana's case, like not admit to her own feelings and emotions, or at least not weigh them properly.
Even such a questions like, "Are you very old?" And she, and she feels old, right? Whatever old is, but she has to confront that. Oh yeah, this is actually something that I feel and that I worry about, whether I am very old.
Yes.
He gives people who are open to it permission to really reflect on themselves.
Yes. The character itself holds little appeal to me, but it's like I definitely have to say that in this episode, the character was well used.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but I think that's true for a lot of Alexander episodes, which maybe we'll get more into.
We already know your deleted scene.
Oh, yes. What was it again? What did I say?
I can't remember. Just like I was hoping you did.
actually, no. I'm going to change my mind. There's a deleted scene that I want. You know, as dismissive as I was about the science fiction B plot, that's not fair, because this is how like Star Trek: The Next Generation works. This is what people tune into. It's what they want, and it should be there. But I would have loved it if there was, let me see, a deleted scene where something was learned about these parasites that made them allegorical. Yes, I think that's what I talked about. To what Alexander and Loxana were talking about, that they could have informed one another rather than being so separate and a bit of peril that nobody needs. Do you know this episode won 2 Emmys, by the way?
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
One of only 4 episodes of Star Trek to have won this many for outstanding individual achievement in costume design.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
right, yeah.
Earned by Robert Blackman, who's the costume designer, and for makeup in the series.
Okay, yeah. I mean, yes.
Was also nominated for hairstyling.
Oh, well, yes, there was a lot of big hair going on. All right, so deleted scenes. Let's see.
What's your
deleted scene? I kind of would have... No, I was going to say I'd like a scene with Picard and Loxana, but that would just mean more Loxana refusing to listen to anything that Picard has to say and just like doing
really
her
hasn't
own.
paid any attention to him.
No, she was like clearly not on. I mean, she was like going to find a different husband rather than.
Oh my God!
Oh, there could have been could have been a scene where she comes to Picard moaning about the ambassador and how formal he is, and after she first meets him, she goes like has tea with Jean-Luc. She complains about how stiff and uptight he is, and if he perhaps and he starts to offering her diplomatic advice in how to deal in the culture with him, and she tries to make a pass at Picard instead. It's like, well, you know, I would drop him in an instant if you were to like take marry me instead. You know, it's like something along those lines. So that's my deleted scene.
So how does Picard react? Does he roll his eyes or does he go, Loxana, come on?
Oh, how does he react to that? No, I think that would have to be a Saved by the Bell situation where the B plot rises its ugly head again.
I've changed my mind again. In an unusual move, I've got a contradictory deleted scene.
Okay.
Do you know how sometimes they film like completely contradictory plots?
Oh, right, and we'll decide later in the cutting room which way we're gonna go, yeah?
Which is Picard, like, conspicuously going to 10 forward to order a cup of tea and just sitting around like, well, I hope Loxana doesn't just suddenly come in here and annoy me. And then she doesn't. And he's just sitting there, okay.
And he can't enjoy his tea because he's waiting for the other shoe to drop in and like her to barge on it.
It gets worse. Like, he checks in with Riker and like, okay, are you sure that she hasn't accessed my public record agenda so that she can sort of... And he's just increasingly frustrated that she's not coming to bother him because... wait, I want to send you away. I don't want you... But you do have to pay attention to me.
Very good, yes. Okay. So...
Well, Alexander...
Yes?
I'm leaving Starfleet.
Energize.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode with your friends Kay and Kaki, production and editing by Chief Engineer Greg, and music by Fox Amore. Join us next time for Prodigy Season 1, Episode 8, Time Amok. You can visit us at joyoftrek.com/links to send us your recommendations, support us on Patreon, or to find us on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Facebook. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening to The Joy of Trek, and we'll see you out there.